Hello and welcome back. I hope you are well and that you're having a good start to your new year. Today I am going to be doing a continuation of my last video on the Derwent Inktense pencils. Today I'm going to be using them in my sketchbook, and I'm going to do some wet on wet techniques and then also some dry techniques with them as well in the final few layers. So I started by doing a pencil sketch and then I inked it with a micron. I believe it's the 0.25 millimeters, the one that I use, and then the Unipin brush pen that I normally use. I am drawing an egret today. I believe that's how you pronounce it. We sometimes find them in the river around here, and it can be a little difficult to capture them in photos because they tend to fly away very quickly, but sometimes you can see them in the trees around here as well, which looks quite funny because they're not super big birds, but they're pretty big birds, and it's very noticeable when they're in a tree around here. And I don't particularly know why I decided to draw an egret today, but I wanted to, so here we are. And once I did the inking, I started by putting down some base tones. So I decided to start in with the beak, and I put down a layer of yellow, and then I activated it with water. So for the activation, I was using a water brush, which you can see here. And the pigmentation really pops when you apply water to these Inktense pencils. So I decided when I wanted to go in lighter areas to do a slightly different technique here where I take pigment off the tip of the pencil and then apply it with the water brush, which gives a much more watered down effect. And once the beak was dry, I went in with a few other colours. So I went in with the red, I think it's the poppy red, and I went in with a couple of the browns, and closer to the eye I used a green because there's quite a lot of colour variation in their beak. Egrets are an interesting bird, and I think the reason why I decided to go with this was because they have white feathers and you can get a lot of colour variation in white subjects. So it ended up meaning that I could use quite a lot of different colours in the body of the bird as well. So you'll see me using some magenta and then also blues and some indigos, and then mixing magenta and the blue to make purples in areas. And then where the sun was hitting the bird, I was able to use more sort of peachy tones, some yellows, oranges, and then those bled into the magenta. So overall I was able to get quite a lot of colour variation. And you can see here I'm still doing really light layers. And the thing about Inktense pencils is that once the layers dry, once they've been activated by water and they dry, they become permanent, so you can't reactivate them, which meant that I could go in with multiple wet layers knowing that the layers underneath weren't going to reactivate and move around. So I went around the whole body doing the more shadowed areas with the blues. And then once I put in the base tones that I wanted to use, I went in with the colours dry and started layering that way. I started by having their like reeds as a green colour, and then I ended up turning them brown towards the end. Now I'm going in with the dry layers of the pencils, and I'm using magenta, blues, a little bit of teal in places, and then towards the back of the body of the bird I used indigo. And I really enjoyed this process. I really love the effect that was produced by doing the wet base tones and local colour, and then going in on top with layers of the dry pencil. It's very similar to when you use watercolour and then put colour pencil on top, but it's an all-in-one process for these pencils. I have done the same effect before with watercolour pencils, but I did find these were more vibrant when they were applied dry compared to watercolour pencils, but it's a very similar process. While I let this time lapse run for a little bit, I have a few updates for you all. January is a pretty hectic month for me, and this year has been no different. So I did miss out on last week's video, but I am definitely going to be back now, and I have some videos planned. I have some really exciting art goals that I'm going to be rolling into motion next month. I have all of my art aims broken down into steps, and I'm probably going to go through that in a video soon. One of these goals, though, for a little sneak peek, is to draw more animals from life. And as I mentioned, I broke down each of these goals, so one of the steps that I've done to break down that goal is that I'm going to go to the local aquarium to sketch. And you can get an annual pass for my local aquarium, so I'm going to be grabbing that so that I can go multiple times during the year. And the first visit is going to be in a couple weeks, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to be going with just pencils, just graphite pencils the first time I go so that I'm not overwhelmed with supplies. And then for each visit, I can start adding different mediums and bring different things with me. So I'm probably going to take some videos while I'm there and do a video on that in the upcoming future of the channel, which will be exciting. And back to the drawing, you can see that the water's really come along now. I struggled with the water, I'm not gonna lie. It definitely went through an ugly middle stage for me, and it started to come together towards the end. The first few wet layers didn't come out exactly as planned, and then the middle layers were just in that like ugly middle stage of a drawing, and then it all started to come together as more layers were added. And then towards the end, I added highlights back in with the white Jelly Roll pencil you can see off to the side. I originally left some white of the paper in areas, but I wasn't super happy with how the areas that I left looked. They just didn't pop out as vibrant as I wanted, the edges weren't as crisp as I wanted. So I decided to cover those up with subsequent layers of pencil and then go in with the gel highlights on top in select areas. I did struggle a little bit with it, which was, it makes sense because the gel ink is wet and it activated the dry pencil underneath. So what I had to do was I had to put down a line of the gel ink, let that dry, and that would have activated and then dried the Derwent pencil underneath. And then I'd have to do the same line again with the gel ink over the top, and then I got the white line. So that was a learning process for me, something to note for future drawings for sure. So you can see me struggling here a bit. You can't really see the white lines exactly because I'm putting them down for the first time. And then when I put them down again, you can see that they look white. And they show up a little bit more on the close-up that I'll be doing at the end. So overall, I enjoyed this process. It does take a little bit of time, especially when you're doing the dry layers on top. But this can be a process that would be useful for travel sketching for me, potentially, because I can take these pencils with me. It's a set of 12, so there's not that many. And then I can just take a mechanical pencil, my brush pen, maybe the white gel pen, and I have a little set of pencils that I can do wet effects with and then also dry effects with by bringing my water brush with me. But I won't be using this technique for the first time I go to the aquarium. I might bring it along with me the second or third time I go, we shall see. But even for trips outside to do like plein air sketching, it would be a really easy setup. The sketchbook I'm using today, which I'll leave all of the materials in the description with some affiliate links if you're interested in them. The sketchbook I'm using is my Nostalgie A5. So you can see the layering effect on the bird here with the close-up. and the effect of the water. I think I definitely need to practice water with these pencils a little bit more to gain a grasp on how they work, but I'm excited to try them with different subjects, maybe portraits, characters, and other animals, we shall see. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next videos. Bye!